The girl was sitting drinking when she was struck by a group of strong and powerful people, with black vest wearing on them, and took to meet their box. According to him, money was valueless. So he asked her to pay for price to voluntarily abandon his true nephew. Not allured by money, she all beat approximately from 30 to 40. Each of them ate 2 to 3 bowls of rice and then escaped from the grand mansion. All these imaginary scenes were recalled by her fateful meeting a few months ago. The shopping mall hosted the launch event for a famous author's publication today. Tin Tin, today, appeared in a pure white suit that had been washed in a blind cleaner. While she was wearing a makeup, she didn't pay attention to what was happening inside the car. There was a man who made her red lipstick from high-end branded goods fly away. Opening the car was the general manager Ko Vin, with white skin, handsome face, y1.80 m. He had the straighter nose than her, like a star stepping out of the car. Accidentally, there were 2 people who ran over because they were crazy about the writer inside. It made them more chances to have a close contact with each other. He wanted to ask him if he was okay, but the secretary came to interrupt. They left but did not know that Ko Vin's shirt accidentally caught her brand new shirt. Feeling useless, Tin Tin had to chase after him to scold him for not seeing anything. The handsome guy, looking blank, had his assistant buy her a replacement set. He was still handsome and moved inside. He was in a hurry like that due to taking over the president instead of his grandfather. But he was not only good-looking and exceptionally talented, he also had his own ideals. So Ko Vin continuously rejected this position. He also wrote the resignation letter for the position that he was working at that time. Below the publication's author was Han Nin, who appeared in front of a warm welcome from Fangirl. Tin Tin did not want to see him with tattered clothes, but she still spent money owning a new released book by her idol. It was true that being born handsome would never be starving. After buying the book, she imagined happy scenes with idols. The script was beautiful, but it wouldn't happen. Accidentally bumping into Ko Vin, she came back to reality and dropped the whole book. While planning to pick up for Tin Tin, the employees of his grandfather's company came to surround the photo. They didn't let Ko Vin leave and accidentally dropped Tin Tin's book in the ground, made it crumple. Seeing her idol's book being trampled, she lost the control and wanted to attack them. She used her skills. 1 punch took down on guy, 1 kick knocked out another, and 3rd punch, some left went away. He thanked her for her loyalty, but when the department head tried to explain, she knocked him out, leaving him unconscious. Seeing the blood made her fainted. Ko Vin caught her and then asked the assistant to take her to the provincial hospital. Becoming conscious in the hospital, she thought that she was encountering a creep. When Ko Vin pulled the blanket up for her, she threw a powerful punch to the assistant, since it is often said that the life of hired workers was tough. He wondered why his boss was not afraid of being closer to her. What a coincidence. He even praised her and said that she fighted very impressively. Boss Ko wanted his secretary to find out more about her and wanted him to be a safeguard. Tin Tin's family owned a martial arts school, as well as a rental service. At the same time, Ko Vin and his assistant also came to the martial art house to Tin Tin with some presents. When they met their parents, they told them to hire Tin Tin as a bodyguard for the boss Ko Vin. Money was not a matter at all, just did the job well. Her parents also liked this deal, but she confronted the boss and called him a creep for coming. Hearing that, her father made them run away. As Ko Vin and the assistant left, she angrily grabbed a basket of fruit and threw it outside. As they just walked for a few steps, they were chased away by their grandfather's bodyguards. With no other choice, Ko Vin returned to Tin's house to inform her, leaving the assistant running in despair. As she sleepily went outside to wash her hair due to a lack of water, Ko Vin had to help her with a kettle to avoid being discovered. But she accidentally stumbled upon him and the music emerged in a romantic scene. But unluckily, when her parents saw his presence in their house, they all suspected that he just wanted to deceive their family. He thought Ko Vin was really a pervert, loving green strawberries. But when she heard that he would pay in advance, her mother changed attitudes, since that matter determined consciousness. Then he confidently rented Tin Tin as a bodyguard, and he also rented this house, since it was a big benefit, so her mother didn't want to refuse this. Ko Vin picked Tin Tin's room as his bedroom, disregarding her objections, as money spoke louder. After the discussion, they agreed and signed the contract to finalize the deal. But when he wanted to pay, his account was locked and no one answered his calls for help. So he had to put the branded Rolex watch to make news. And that night, Ko Vin could stay at their family but in an old room, while pawning a branded Rolex watch, which made him feel uncomfortable. Despite feeling that, he slept well all night. It wasn't until the morning that he was woken up by Tashing's exercise music. She said that he had to get up at 5:30 if he wanted to live there. Then her family did exercises every morning to be more healthy. When she contacted the assistant, she showed him where to hide the other bank cards she had hidden. He had been prepared for the upcoming emergency like this could happen. To be careful, he also called the assistant to deliver the goods to the shipper. After handing over the information, the assistant was called in to be questioned by the department head about Ko Vin. At that time, when he called up, everyone persuaded him to return for taking over the group, but he didn't want to reply. The delivery person brought Ko Vin's head to her, and she would handle the financial matters for Tatin's family that day. To withdraw money unnoticed, he was given a helmet by the Ta family's dojo, resembling Carmen Sandiego, which ironically attracted others. Both Everyon took notice of him. They went to the city by bus to take money. She stood up to shield him from sitting. He handed the card to Tin Tin and asked her to withdraw the money, and she reluctantly agreed. When she checked his card, she was stunned to see a 10-digit balance in his account. She guessed that someone with such much money could only be a criminal. Without saying a word, she went outside to take matters into her. She walked slowly towards him and hit him once, making him bleed. She beat him strongly, but when she saw blood, she was afraid of that and then fainted afterwards. Then he carried her home to rest. I met Ms. Bach at the gate. Ms. Bach gave him a phone for contact and he felt curious. When Ko Vin was able to get in close contact with that girl again, he couldn't explain for this and also did not want to return to take over the corporation for his grandfather. Inside, Tatin wanted to persuade her parents that Ko Vin was not a kind person and needed to get rid of him. Three of them secretly overheard the conversation between Ko Vin and Ms. Bach. Upon hearing that Ko Vin was the heir of the Ko family, everyone suddenly became alert. No wonder money came to him easily and it was useless. Hearing that, everyone changed their attitudes. To be sure, Tin Tin went online to verify the information. It was clear that he was the heir of Ko conglomerate and he was uniquely exceptional. Their parents were excited and lucky for them. After handing over the money, Tatin's mother started to fall for the CEO, and also took her daughter to another room and let Ko Vin feel the most comfortable. That night, Ko Vin had Tin Tin running around, fetching water for him, insisting he only drank it at 50 degrees. The girl was resentful and didn't know how to deal with him. She didn't understand why everyone wanted to throw his position away, but she preferred to live miserably like that. That night, Tin Tin went to her room to sleep, but was awakened by Prince Ko Vin. She lost control and scolded him as a creep for entering the room without permission. Realizing it was now Ko Vin's room, she felt embarrassed and reluctantly stepped outside. The next morning, the return of Hanian brought a bright and cheerful atmosphere to the Ta family, lifting Tatin's spirits. He had been the ex-student of Tin's father. Today he came to visit everyone before his long business trip. Ko Vin, feeling superior, dismissed him, not caring about who he was. After seeing Hanian off, Ko Vin told her that to that senior, she was just a rainy day sister. Why could grasses reach the clouds? Sad about this, Tatin confided in her friend Aimee to soothe her sorrows. That night Ko Vin turned on the light and used the sleeping oil to sleep, but the electricity was too weak. Unable to use it, Tin Tin gave him a high-end village bracelet. People referred it as a fragrant charm, which helped him to endure countless lifetimes. Some next days were filled with a series of demanding requests from Ko Vin for bodyguard. Frustrated, Tatin turned to Aimee to vent her feelings. Her friend suggested a plan to make the CEO lose interest. She had to follow him every time everywhere, which made him feel displeasing. Then Tin Tin was taken to go shopping for clothes by Ko Vin. On the car, she imagined which clothes she would buy in Hermes or Channer. But Ko Vin said to just go to the market and buy him a few simple outfits. But seeing Ko Vin, he looked good in everything, whether dressed or undressed. The owner continuously praised for him. Ko Vin then took Tatin to the mall to buy her a few new outfits. After trying a few high-end sets of clothes, Ko Vin bought all, and he would pay all for her. To him, money was not a matter. After that, Ko Vin and Tin Tin came together to attend the art exhibition. They admired a statue, likely crafted by a highly skilled artist. Specifically, that talent was cunning and trivial. Just as she wanted to leave, someone bumped into her, which caused her drop it. The exhibition manager gave her two choices: either she would pay for it, or that guy would. Tin Tin was frightened and Ko Tin had paid that for her. On the way back, they stopped at a tea shop to chat. She promised to pay him back and told him to keep it secret. Calculating quickly, she realized she'd have to work for him for 5 years to pay off the debt. Circumstances shaped her, so Tatin reluctantly felt she couldn't refuse. Ko Vin recorded a video as proof, threatening to take her to court if she denied it later. That evening, Tatin's mother invited her to her beauty salon to make beauty. Hearing about the Rose promotion for referrals, Tatin thought of Ko Vin. The next morning, while chatting with friends at the salon, she saw the CEO's daughter and Ko Vin stop by. She bragged that her daughter was being pursued by the CEO and was there to support her mother-in-law. Tatin treated Ko Vin herself and warned him that if he didn't follow all the steps, she wouldn't be responsible for ruining his handsome face. Being handsome, he took her warning seriously. The CEO insisted that Tatin finish the treatment, and she ended up with a hefty 12,000 riel bill. For a wealthy person, money was valueless, but if they charged me for this, I couldn't afford. Tatin used this method to pay off her debt. The plan was so unconventional that he never saw it coming, so he decided to give it a try. He asked Tatin massage and wash his clothes, make him laugh to improve his daily meal. That afternoon they met Hanian coming home from work. With the handsome guy around, Tatin dropped her tough demeanor and became a graceful, charming girl. and she didn't care at all about the CEO. So he used the debts to threaten her and told her to get him some coffee. If he revealed this secret, she couldn't tie the knot. After returning home, they sat and talked together. Ko-Vin hinted at the sculpture exhibition and Tin began to catch on. Han-in also invited Tin to register for a literary assistant with him, but Ko-Vin prevented her. He claimed that since Tin was working for him, she didn't have time for any artistic pursuits. That night, Tin chatted with her senior and complained about the CEO's many flaws. She noted that while he was tall and handsome, his personality was quite annoying. She asked her senior to open a bottle of water, but Ko-Vin took it, saying she had already opened it, so why complain? Tin just wanted to dig a hole and hide. She pulled Ko-Vin to her room to check if he was ruining her idealized love. Ko-Vin revealed that she was just trying to be someone else in front of Han-in, but was losing her true self in the process. After their argument, Tin angrily walked away. The next morning, while waiting for Tin, Ko-Vin and Han-in argued about literature downstairs. Today, Han-in invited Tin out, and to interfere, Ko-Vin insisted on going along. Tin firmly refused, but Nin agreed to let him come along, leaving her feeling quite frustrated. Tin stopped to buy milk tea for his brother, but when he brought out, Ko-Vin shouted it. With a face full of resentment, Tin just wanted to force him out of there. They arrived at Tin's school and she asked Ko-Vin to take a photo of her and her senior, but he mostly captured their feet. Frustrated, Tin held back and switched to selfies instead. Ko-Vin interrupted and inserted the displeasing face to disrupt them. Tin made excuses to send him away, but he insisted on following her, claiming he was afraid of danger. A little later, Imi arrived to join them, and Tin asked her to help deal with the annoying interloper. Afterwards they decided to go for a picnic and rent tandem bikes. However, due to his fear of contacting, he insisted on sitting with Tin. So Imi paired up with Han-in, leaving Tin reluctantly pedaling while adjusting to Ko-Vin's presence. While Ko-Vin leisurely steered the bike while Tin focused on the ground. The four of them sat down with some food. Imi wanted to send Kaida Kinmui to grab drinks so Tin and the mysterious monk could have some privacy. But she was aware of the plan, so she cleverly dodged the task to avoid going. While they were talking, they saw Mr. Ha out with his wife and kids. Ignoring their hard work, he immediately chased after Tin. So Tin and Ko-Vin rushed quickly to SKO from Hatong. Poor them. While his family was right here, he had rushed but couldn't catch Tin. The two of them held hands and ran into a forest, with Mr. Ha chasing after them like crazy. But finally Mr. Ha caught Ko-Vin, but Tin had quickly restrained him, so seizing the chance, they managed to escape from Mr. Ha. With no one managing the company, Anu came to the shop to find Ko-Vin. Waiting until night, she couldn't see him and her. Everyone was worried and tried calling, but there was no answer. When they finally returned, Anu scolded them for not protecting the boss. The boss defended Tin and took full responsibility. She came here to inform that his grandfather was not good and she hoped that he returned to take charge. But he firmly refused to leave, wanting to stay with the family longer, and asked Anu to manage the work at the old family home for now. Meanwhile, Han-in advised Tin and warned her to be careful with Ko-Vin. Since they came from different worlds, he warned her not to let a rich boy utilize her. Han-in asked Tin to the product launch tomorrow. That night, Tin served dinner for the boss, trying to get his okay for a day off. He happily agreed with her with a condition that he would go with her. The next morning, they met up as planned to go to Han-in's product launch. On the car ride, Ko-Vin also supported her head so she wouldn't wake up suddenly. Since during the peak season, the hotel had run out of room. So Ko-Vin and Han-in had to stay with each other. In the midst of chatting with Vin about changing hotels, Tin forgot to iron the clothes, resulting in her burning Han-in's vest for the launch. It's true that being poor often brings bad luck, while the rich can usually solve their problems with money. So during the dinner, she was lost in thought and she was just worried about the burned vest. Seeing this, Ko-Vin found a place that could help her fix the vest, which made her very happy. She thanked him for saving her from a tough situation. When she brought the vest in, the staff happily accepted it because the boss had already covered all the costs. Ko-Vin used the excuse of sleeping soon to send Han-in away, and he also warned that not to flirt too much with girls and specifically Tin. Since she was unable to sleep, Vin had to find Tin and found her dozing off at the tailor shop. He gently put on her a warm coat and then he slept on the sofa to watch her. The next morning, Han-in had a new work schedule, so Tin would have to wait for him to finish in the evening. Ko-Vin stood the chance of following Tin to the lakeside tourist area for some fun. He received the phone call that notified that Ko-Vin had helped him overcome the disease of fearing of contact. Knowing that Tin would confess his feeling to Han-in, so Vin prepared for the confession with fully decorated suitcase. Ko-Vin urged Tin to back off, knowing she'd likely fail, and advised her to stop to avoid disappointment. However, after confiding each other, Tin realized he had never fallen in love. That was the reason why bad guys weren't good and good guys weren't fun enough. That was why she was single. Not to let Ko Vin interrupt the confession, Tin drew him a circle and asked him to just sit still inside it, like a circle of love. But when she needed help, Tin persuaded him to assist her, so Good Boy helped her set up the tent again. She also said that the tent was for her and her crush to stargaze side by side, which made him displeasing. While setting up the lights, Tin accidentally poked a beehive, prompting them to take shelter in the small tent. They were careless and kiss accidentally. Unluckier, Ko Vin's phone fell into the water. His ankles was swelling and they also missed the final boat. The young couple stayed helpless in the lake. And that night Ko Vin and Tin stayed at the island and then lighted the candles together. It was also Vin's first time enjoying fireworks, as his family disliked them, believing they were just fleeting beauty. Tin sympathized him and then they played fireworks together. After finishing work, Han contacted Tin, but he worriedly when she didn't reply. Seeing them not returning, he didn't know where they had gone. That night, Vin and Tin had a chance to chat about all sorts of random topics. All what happened to him at that previous time, he wondered himself if he fell for her. The next morning, Vin woke up to find Tin hugging her, startled to realize they had overslept and missed Han-Nin's signing event. When Han-Nin's signing event ended, Tin arrived. She also explained it for him. But she didn't want to mention the intention of confessing the love by the lake. But it was worthless telling him about that confession since he would not show up. To replace the clay doll she broke, Vin and her assistant made and painted a new one to gift to Tin. Due to thanking AI for lending him an umbrella, he went to the store and gave her a statue as thank you. Although it was not beautiful enough, AI found happy. At home, Vin finished painting the statue, then quietly placed it at Tin's door before quickly running back to her room. She opened the door and saw the gift from Ko Vin, which made her mused. That night feeling hungry, Ko Vin asked to eat night. On the way they ran into IME and decided to eat egg skewers together. She was surprised when the boss today ate foods at such a sidewalk store. She also announced that she nearly had a new boyfriend. Tin had to flirt Han-Nin sooner. After hearing that, Ko Vin pretended to told that it was crazy falling in love each other. The next morning, when Han-Nin came to house, Vin personally opened the door for him. When they talked together, Tin's father came out and smiled and revealed that he was the one to call him there. Today was the 35th anniversary of Mr. To meeting Mrs. To, and he wanted the young friend's help. He wanted to recall the time Mr. To had met his wife previously. He wanted to turn the living room into a disco dancing room. Everyone was delighted to prepare for the ceremony. Mr. To and Ko Vin would decorate the house, while Tin and Han-Nin were assigned to go grocery shopping. While decorating, Ko Vin couldn't shake his thought of the scene where she confessed to Han-Nin. So he used the excuse of buying flowers for the master to go look for Tin. Following the script, Vin accidentally found the two of them at the market. He secretly followed them. He was eavesdropping on their conversation when a saleswoman recognized him. She advised him to take the initiative to confess to that girl. His illness flared up and he fainted on the spot. And he felt ashamed in front of them and he didn't say anything. Han-Nin suspected that Vin had a feeling for her, but she firmly denied and said it was not possible. On the other side, Ko Vin asked his assistant to buy a bouquet of flowers to give mother. On the way to buy flowers, he was monitored by Mr. Ha to check the Ko Vin's location. And then he had to hide in AIME store. Seeing a handsome guy with roses, the chatty woman assumed his feelings and accepted his love without letting him explain. Mr. Ha's subordinates imagined finding Ko Vin's location, but they felt disappointed when seeing the couple kissing affectionately each other. When Mrs. To returned home, she was surprised by the celebration her husband had prepared for her. They danced for a while before getting emotional and reminiscing about memories with their children and grandchildren. While Tin was outside seeing Han-Nin off, Vin confided in Mr. and Mrs. To about her recent heartache from seeing a friend with someone else. Hearing that, they found that Ko Vin had his unrequited love for their daughter. They also advised him to chase for his unrequited love enthusiastically. After hearing their encouragement, he felt motivated to pursue Tin. Since he was a good boy and not interesting enough, Tin didn't care him a lot. Regarding Amy, the assistant explained that the bouquet was for someone else because his boss had asked him to buy it. He had to escape from thugs, so he hit her. But she didn't care a lot about the flowers. She just cared if he liked him or not. And then their relationship started to begin from that time. Then they kissed each other romantically. Like the way how they handle quickly but romantically. Next Ko Vin arranged to meet his assistant to talk about his love life. Hearing for a while, he could guess that Tin was falling in love with martial art girl, Tin. He also encouraged and gave him some advice to attract her. It was following and meeting her preferences. And the next day, he took her to the gym club to train her ability. It was also necessary to protect him from danger. As a result, he was punched by Tin. This guy switched tactics and directly asked Tin if she had any wishes. After a bit of hesitation, she said she wanted to watch Shooting Stars with Han-Nin tonight, but he was busy. Vin took the opportunity to give Tin a paid day off, showing great kindness. Vin put on a sleek black suit and reminded Tin to dress nicely too. Talking gossip for a while, and then they went to the park to watch the meteor. He arranged the meteor watching secretly in the park according to Tin's wishes. He also told the assistant to carefully book the table at the luxurious restaurant. The plan had been prepared well, but unfortunately, it rained heavily, which broke his plans. When she came to the park, it rained cats and dogs. The handsome boy from the umbrella of another girl in the rain ran to Imi's shop. Vin came to the Imi's store. Seeing Tin there, he scolded her not coming and making him wait for 2 hours, and he was confused what happened to her. At the same time, Dac also arrived, and then 2 couples. At that moment, Imi realized that Vin was the evil boss of Dac, whom she often criticized. They went to the residence that Dac had prepared before, and all preparations Vin had planned for Tin had ended up. Even the necklace Vin had prepared had to be given to Dac to put on Imi. He felt bitter without doing anything. After the meal, Tin returned and found the Vin's telescope. She recalled that he had imagined what she had talked with Hanian. So Tin said thank you to him. She couldn't understand why his guy became suddenly so much better. When he knew that Tin would attend the party from Hanian's company, Vin suddenly asked the assistant to take the ticket immediately for him to attend this important meeting. Then he with Hanian entered the hall in the pristine white outfits, looked like a handsome prince. Then Vin's car arrived, and he looked like he was turned into a prince. He didn't need to act as a good guy, but a bad guy had to play a role. The party was formal and all his partners praised him and Tin a beautiful couple, but he denied that Tin was just his younger sister. Immediately, Vin appeared to save Tin's face, claiming that she was the one pursuing her. Everyone was surprised when he said that. He also danced in front of the stage with her affectionately. Hanian also invited Anu to step out and dance with him. Anu realized that Tin fell for Hanian, and Hanian realized that Anu fell for the boss. Life always unfolded the way we least expected. Then Hanian and Vin have a short talk, and he asked Vin not to take advantage of her. But perhaps the one hurting her was actually him. When the party was over, Hanian took Anu back home. Vin also knew that Tin was sad, so she invited her to go for a walk and carefully put on her clothes to keep her cold. A simple gesture from a gentleman. On this side, Vin and Tin ate street food vendor. Due to be rejected skillfully, he drank a lot and confided it. Obviously, seeing that Tin had already cared, Vin took her back. He also carefully to move the thick heels for Tin. They stopped and playing seesaw games in the park together. Tin also thought that the person in front of him was Hanian, so he talked a lot about him. It made him feel displeasing, but she kept screaming loudly. It made all the neighborhood come out to hear what was happening. When she got home, Mista was panicked and took out her daughter back, who was too drunk. The next morning, when she opened her eyes, she didn't understand why she was sleeping in Vin's closet. Going downstairs, she was scolded by her mother in a fight for being drunk and doing crazy tricks. Going to the room, he began to question her what she had done to him yesterday. She pretended not to remember anything. That night she was so drunk and went to his closet and kissed him passionately, which left a lipstick stain on his shirt. After hearing this, she immediately left due to her embarrassment. When she came out, the whole neighborhood complained about her since she didn't let anyone sleep. Then Imi and the delivery team brought in a lot of toy boxes. It turned out that the boss invested in developing toy business and brought it to the house to sell. He was cold but a kind nature. He didn't say too much but just take action. It was the type that most women liked. Then Tin sought out Imi to talk, realizing that she and Hanian likely wouldn't be a couple. While they were confiding, Mr. Ta also brought beer and mock meat for lunch. Tin recalled when she kissed the boss and he had confessed his love to her. Dac mentioned that his boss was also pursuing Tin, and remembered that Vin had done for her and her parents. She was mused. Not to mention the stargazing and the fancy restaurant dinner. No one couldn't do that without no feelings. Then, Vin personally went to Imi's shop to pick up Tin. Meanwhile, inside, Dac and Imi continued sharing romantic French kisses, putting on a show for everyone. Vin announced that Hanian asked Tin to bring him the documents next week. Vin would also go with her, as it was another request from Hanian. The scene shifts to Hanian's company, which was also the boss's corporation. While waiting for the elevator, Vin panicked and covered her face upon seeing her grandfather nearby. Luckily they could get into the elevator to escape. Hanian was quite curious about Vin's strange behavior. The documents that he helped Tin prepare contained a lot of useful information for Hanian, and he praised the boss for being rich, handsome and talented as well. Because while some have it all I have is beauty. As they were leaving, they unexpectedly saw a group of people from Lao Ha waiting for the elevator. Then they had to escape using the stairs. Ha's group of subordinates chased them, so they hid in a nearby storage room, and they had a chance to be close each other in peace. To avoid drawing attention from Ha's group, Vin and Tin pretended to be a couple taking wedding photos to avoid attention. After escaping, Vin suggested to Tin that they take some wedding photos for good luck. Since they were already in wedding attire, it felt less guilty to involve the crew who had braved the heat with them. So Tin reluctantly cooperated to take a wedding photo with Ko Vin. Then, on the way home, Lao Ha's people blocked Vin, demanding she return to the country. Tin displayed some martial arts skills and took down all the fringe fighters. At the same time Mr. Ko appeared and ordered to stop all actions. Mr. Ko issued threats to force Ko Vin to return to the corporation, but this rebellious guy firmly refused to comply. Tin, acting as a personal bodyguard, stepped forward to protect Ko Vin from his grandfather. Not to make the situation serious, Mr. Ko let Ko Vin think carefully. In the evening, Ko Vin let Tin see their fake wedding photos but still beautiful. He felt that it lacked something so kissed her afterwards. During that time her mother came in and interrupted their emotions. They went back their bedroom and felt regretful. The next day, while cooking, Mrs. T decided to encourage her daughter to open up to the CEO. He was not only handsome but also wealthy, and he was a kind person who provided her family with high-end goods. On this side, Mr. Tu and Ko Vin also walked over together. He advised him to confess the feeling to the person he liked. At the Ko-Jia Corporation, the grandfather was very angry when he saw the wedding photo of his grandson with the tough bodyguard, Tin. It turned out that all this time, his grandson had been living at Ko-Jia, and he had no idea. He told Anu to quickly resolve this matter with her sister. Ko Vin called the assistant to ask how to tell if Tin liked him. Ta Dat came up with an idea that he needed to let a third party appear. If Tin got jealous, it means she also liked the CEO. And then she arranged a date with a high school friend student who was a beautiful girl and brought her along. Let's see what her attitude was. After that, they went to meet a beautiful and lovely friend named Tu, a refined young lady from the cultural creative area. Tin was quite puzzled because this kind of outing wasn't typical for Ko Vin. At the love check-in area, Tu wanted to handprint with Ko Vin, but he invited Tin to join as well. This made her feel uncomfortable. At mealtime, she only ordered 2 dishes left. Tin lose in thought. Tu remarked that she forgot his portion and explained she learned to cook this dish just for him. Hearing how nice it sounded, Ko Vin didn't hesitate to share the plate of food with Tin. She enjoyed the meal and praised it and asked for the recipe to try cooking it herself. During the meal, Tu and Ko Vin watched Tin enjoy 2 plates of rice without any shame. She felt not shameful. On the way, Tin advised him not to suit a girl like Tu. He didn't develop the relationship with others until he addressed his fear of close contact. After Tin got off the bike, both she and Ko Vin realized that the third-party dating tactic had no effect on her. So they had to move on to plan B, run with the idea of the pagan evil spirit. That night at home, Ko Vin intended to cut her hand but didn't dare to because she was too afraid of the pain. In a late-night shower, Tin walked in and saw him trembling, showing no sympathy and being on top of him. Handsome and well-built, but with no muscle tone or definition at all. Ko Vin got into bed angrily, did a few sit-ups, and then refused to cover herself with the blanket to sleep. Is this guy just for show with that skin? The next morning, when Tak came to pick him up for work, he saw him huddled under the covers in bed. The only problem was that no matter what methods he tried, he just couldn't lose weight. Tak came up with a bold plan: to use support tools. He placed a heat-retaining pad on his head to raise his body temperature. After Ko Vin's temperature reached nearly 90 degrees, the two of them began their self-sacrifice strategy. Tak transformed into a holy seed actor. He rushed to report the health status of the CEO to Tin so she could come take care of him. Seeing that Ko Vin really seemed unwell, Tin decided to take care of her personally and went to buy medicine for her. Ko Vin requested an extra serving of the fried rice that Tin had cooked herself. It's true that you can't be too greedy, brother. After experimenting with countless recipes, Tin finally finished the fried rice and asked Tak to bring it up for her. Ko Vin was extremely excited to know that it was made by Tin herself. The only issue was that it tasted quite unusual, but still, it was the thought from her loved one. So, Ko Vin closed her eyes and tried to finish it to honor the effort that Tin had put in. Switching scenes, while buying medicine, Tin discovered the receipt for the heat-retaining pad in Tak's car. She immediately realized that the two young men had tried to deceive her about the illness. Back home, Tin gave Ko Vin the cold medicine, but unexpectedly, she ended up taking all of it. In a panic, she wanted him to throw it up, but accidentally sent a video of Tin owing 300,000 yuan to her mother's phone. So everything broke out, making Tin's parents extremely angry. Mr. Tu even angrily chased Ko Vin away, believing he was just taking advantage of his daughter. Ko Vin and Tin explained it was a misunderstanding, but Mr. and Mrs. Tu questioned the assistant, Tak. Tin was also affected, which made Tak hesitate to lie, and another truth was revealed. That sloppy statue that Tin had broken was Ko Vin's sculpture. Fortunately, the whole family was peaceful, so they did not deal with him. The next day he locked himself in the bedroom and didn't go upstairs for breakfast. Ms. Tu felt sorry for him and forced her daughter to bring food to him. When he go upstairs, she saw him exhausted and suspected that he pretended to be sick. Then she ignored and left away. That night, Ta-Dac and Imi went to house to take Ko-Vin to the hospital. At that time, she realized that he was sick. After Ko-Vin's health was stable in the hospital, Ta-Tin felt extremely sad. Imi advised her to take care of him since he fell for her affectionately. After everyone left, Ta-Tin recalled what Ta-Dac said about Ko-Vin's unfortunate childhood. Although he looked flashy, but inside he was a child who did not lack money but only love. So that whole night, Ta-Tin was at the hospital bed with Ko-Vin. Due to suffering this severe disease, he had achieved his goal. He was so happy and smiled due to being cared by who he liked. Bak Nu went to Sujia to visit Ko-Vin's illness. He brought many medicine and reminded Ta-Tin to take care of him. Since he was the only heir who took over the corporation, so Co-President cared his son's life a lot. Ta-Tin was such as a normal guy while Ko-Vin was such cloud high in the sky. Anu hoped that Ta-Tin will take care to avoid putting themselves in a difficult position later on for both parties, due to the reason that she was just a normal guy. That night she walked alone and recalled about the memories with him from when she met him. She felt miserable and cried. It seemed that Tin mentioned that the two of them are in completely different worlds. So the next morning, Ko-Vin shared her bank account with Ta-Tin. From then, their financial economy would be equal. Each one would owe 50 billions to enjoy lives. But it didn't make her happy, but it made her even angrier. And scolded him for being a rich man without thinking. He didn't know why he was atheist, so he came to meet Imi. She told that not everything could be deal with money. It was just the rich's mindset but the poor. Usually Ta-Tin would do it differently because she didn't have much money. She taught him to be a normal guy, to cooperate with the normal guy's life. He had let himself experience the normal life around him. He helps Ms. Tran register to sell on commercial floor, helping Ta-Tin's mom register beauty cards for customers. He also helped the adults to wear the wrists during doing exercises, to make it more professional and easier when doing exercises. Ta-Tin and her father came back to Vu Dai village, and they saw all shippers coming to pick up the goods in large numbers like a festival. Ko-Vin also helped him to design a registration form for martial art lessons, and advertise the martial arts school to the internet, which made him so happy. He would register as the first student of his class. The next day Ms. Ta personally practiced martial arts for Vin. While not practicing, he spent time on cleaning the house and watering the flowers in the garden. He did all the housework around him. The way to transform him into a normal guy. It inadvertently made him feel more comfortable, which reduced stress. It seemed that the personality of talented general was more arrogant every day. It was more difficult, which made the family feel satisfied. They also wanted their daughter to express her feelings back to him since he felt he was sincere. Ko-Vin tried to integrate into Ta-Tin's life, and he wanted him to give him a chance for expressing love, but she still wondered and did not dare to open the heart. The next day when she was sitting in iced tea and didn't have time for smoking cigarette balls, the group of people from Mr. Ha came to invite Ta-Tin to go on a trip to meet the chairman. He wanted to use his power and finance TRO set condition. He asked Ta-Tin to help him advise his nephew come back to take over Co-Corporation. Money was ephemeral to him, it's just numbers. So she just said what she need to have. At Tu's house, both family calmed phone Tin, so they felt worried. And they thought that she had encountered something wrong. Hearing Ms. Tran say that a group of people wearing suits took her away, he realized that it was his grandfather's subordinates. Coming back to the manager, she handed Tin a review sheet and told her to write the amount that she wanted. But due to her personality, she refused. Then she took a few punches and angrily knocked down all the feathers in that room. To escape, she took on 3 to 4 dozen guys in the garden alone. At the right time she came back and asked everyone to stop quickly. He also used a hose to threaten the bodyguards who rushed near him to wet all clothes. Then his grandfather came back to ask him to give up Ko's house and come back to take over the corporation. But he absolutely disagreed and told that he had known how the love was at that time, and only Tin helped him feel closer. He would do everything, just had time to be closer and stand by her. She also voiced her recognition that Ko-Vin had changed better. He had been no longer arrogant like him in the past. From that time, he had integrated into the life and she was ready to be white Ko-Vin. Hearing that, he felt so happy since she agreed to express her sincere feeling. And then they exchanged the passionate love in front of everyone, including Anu. He felt okay outside, but inside, she felt down in the dumps. She went to the co-president to advise him to find a way to bring Ko-Vin back. But he felt helpless with his nephew, so he didn't want to discuss anymore. That night Ko-Vin and Tin went shopping together and chose things that had a couple, since they had been in a romantic relationship. So they needed to do something as a couple had fallen in love recently. Then they went to buy a gift box to look for special models in the lucky toy box. While opening gifts, there was a boy coming. Tin and Ko-Vin kindly helped the child to get up. This made Tin realize that he had not been fear of having close contact with others. He was also felt satisfied thanks to her. He explained that it wasn't that he didn't want to inherit, but because of his illness he was suffering. It was also due to his pressure from his grandfather, so he didn't want to get involved in. She also advised him since his grandfather was only his relative. so it was the reason why he wanted him to take over the corporation for him. Then they came home and acted like a couple, which made Ms. to feel so happy and satisfied. Mr. to also advised them to fall in a healthy relationship. That night they couldn't fall asleep and then asked each other to brush the teeth. Then they came back their room and sent messages to each other. It was true that when you fall in love with others, it was just all pink world. When they wanted to eat duck eggs, they unexpectedly caught by the father and send them back. In the morning when Tin went to grab some soup to fill her stomach and ran into Mr. Ko. Realizing that Mr. Ko preferred to eat pork noodle soup, so she came closer to eat with him affectionately. While eating pork noodle soup, the two discussed grilled cheese, and discovered that Mr. Ko also had a passion for that dish. Tin felt that Mr. Ko was a simple person, but why he imposed his nephew like this? But he didn't want to put pressure on him, he just wanted his nephew to have a wealthy life. He also told him that Vin didn't want to hurry it. He just needed some time to adjust this position. He would hesitate and he would come back to Ko Corporation sooner. After that, he settled the bill before heading home, which made Mr. Ko feel touched. She was also an interesting girl. It was the reason why his nephew fell for. Tin happily returned home, bringing a portion of fa lao for Ko Vin. At the same time, Mr. To received a phone call that Tu's martial arts school had been bought by someone, and the landlord asked him to leave in 3 days. Everyone felt scared since they didn't know where to go. After finding for a while, they only had 400,000 in them. This amount couldn't do anything as well as buy a new house. Tin also spent her saving account, but it was useless. Ko Vin wanted to help him, but Mr. Ms. To didn't want to interrupt him. Ms. To came up with an idea to find all faults with the house and denied buying the horse. But they couldn't find the mistakes since they always spent time caring for it. After a while, a new led people to Tu's house and they found out that she was the one who bought the house. Ms. To persuaded it, but it was helpless. Anu gave them a house contract and asked them to leave for a week. Ko Vin, it was due to his grandfather's plan, but she acted like a tough man. Turning to a talk between Mr. Ko and Tin. He expressed all his thoughts inside to her. He also asked her to advise Ko Vin to take over and inherit the corporation, since he was likely to be dead soon. Ko Vin came back to his apartment to get rid of personal belongings, for the purpose of renting out the apartment with cheaper price. And then Ko Vin took Tin to rent a cheaper apartment. He had combined with his assistant's skillful acting. The funny employees tried to deceive Tin. But just after a while for checking, she knew it was his apartment. Coming back home, she felt angry with him. But she remembered what Tin's grandfather said. He reconciled with him and hugged him. That night they enjoyed the wine and confided each other. Then they talked to each other about the outlook on life. He also assigned his daughter to Ko Vin and advised him to take care of her carefully. He then happily agreed. Mr. and Ms. To felt that he was not fear of having close contact with others, so he could hug them comfortably. The next morning, he personally went to the company to meet her grandfather, who agreed to manage the group. In exchange, his father would not sign the agreement of buying art martial school. Coming back home, he informed Tin that everyone didn't to move since everything was in order. He would take over the position for his grandfather and he just wanted her to be his bodyguard. He felt so happy when having a handsome boyfriend and simply amazing like that. The next day everyone was waiting for him due to his comeback. She appeared in a Sharpie bodyguard and determined to protect Mr. Ko from any dangers. She also expressed overdid in the car and it prompted him to say, "Come on, tone it down, baby." The first day of being a chairman, Ko Vin was warmly greeted by everyone lined up to welcome him. After entering the office, Tin checked for any potential dangers before letting Ko Vin continue her work. Dac introduced Tin as the board as personal bodyguard of Mr. Ko. After the introduction, Tin was taken over to work closest to Mr. Vin's office, and this office was facilitate reporting. But there was nothing to do. One of them sent Tin to get the documents for arraignment. She happily agreed to go, but since she had never liked Tin, she immediately started teasing her with sarcastic remarks upon her arrival. Waiting to assert her authority, she told Tin to carry the flower pot outside. She was beautiful but not foolish, and she quickly pulled out scissors, acting quite unexpectedly. She firmly stated that she only worked for Mr. Ko and didn't serve anyone else. Ms. Tong then entered, lightening the mood and bringing the atmosphere back to normal, and take Tin away, which made Anu feel angry, but she couldn't do anything, just feeling angry. He wanted to announce his relationship in public, but she feared that it could affect his work. They were affectionately kissing each other and a colleague caught them panically. Back in the office, she felt boring and so she texted to his friend Amy. She also spent time buying all colleagues some drinks and his boyfriend had to pay for them. In the restroom, Tin overheard colleagues gossiping about her, finding it amusing that they thought she was in love with assistant Ta. To reduce rumors about Tin and Ta Dac, Mr. Ko granted Ta Dac a few paid days off. This boss was perfect. At the store, the girlfriend was carrying things when she suddenly dropped a box on her foot. She was immediately taken by him to have her wound bandaged. In the company, he showed his concern to Tin in front of. The best way to dispel the rumor was to create another, which was clever, but it made Tin Tin uncomfortable as she feared it would reveal their relationship. Ko Vin really wanted this, but Tin was not interested, so she pouted and walked away. To apologize, Ko Vin called Tin into her office and gave her a limited edition toy he had just unboxed. But it couldn't make her forgive him anymore. The scene shifts to that night when the office colleagues went out for the launch party of Tin. Meanwhile, Ko Vin followed along to keep an eye on his girlfriend. He came to give her the phone, but that was just an excuse to meet her. Ko Vin would respect Tin's decision to keep things private, but in return, he wanted to receive a kiss. While they were getting close, the secretary spotted them. Secrets will eventually be revealed. He stood before all the staff and declared that Tin was his girlfriend. He had seized the opportunity as soon as possible. I saw Ko Vin and Tin returning home together, looking affectionate and sweet. Even the street vendors couldn't help but feel envious. On this side, the couple Emi and Ta Dac were also very happy. Taking advantage of his days off, Ta Dac lovingly cared for Emi, surprising her. The next morning of that month, a new company, feeling a bit superior, lectured Tin about basic employee skills. But whenever something difficult arose, Ko Vin would step in, and he spoke up to defend his girlfriend. Coming to the business meeting of the corporation, everyone started to gossip about the relationship between the boss and Tin. Without hesitation, Ko Vin showed everyone Tin's capabilities. She could efficiently organize the boss's schedule and remembered it in great detail. Anu did not recognize that talent and considered it a very basic job. Ko Vin noted that Tin helped him overcome social anxiety, and anyone earning over 1,000 billion like him should share their thoughts. Everyone fell silent, as they were all people whose accounts didn't even have 1,000 billion. Therefore, he was too skilled, leaving Anu frustrated but unable to do anything. Then she went to report Chairman Ko about the situation regarding Ko Vin's takeover. If this continued, the company would only get worse. He was a visionary man, so he trusted his grandson's strategy regardless of gossip. He didn't care about money, seeing it as fleeting. He just wanted to enjoy the moment. After hearing that, Anu felt humiliated and left away without saying. At the company, with nothing to do, Tin asked the department head to assign her some tasks. He assigned her a new design to take it to the office. There Tin and Anu ran into each other, and Anu started to tease to her about the relationship with Mr. Ko. During Ko Vin's meeting with Mr. True at an upscale restaurant, Tin accompanied them. Here also had the appearance of Anu, which made the atmosphere uncomfortably awkward. Anu continuously attacked Tin by saying that she was just a bodyguard of the boss. Mr. True asked Tin to pour water for everyone, but Ko Vin defended her, stated that she was his friend. Tin said that tea was already cool, so she would exchange another. Anu also followed me to the toilet and continued to tease her. At the banquet table, Mr. True insulted Ko Vin, criticizing her youth for handling big business. He also took along the mobile flower vase, acting as if it were no big deal. Ko Vin felt disdainful and lost his control, and he left the banquet table immediately. He didn't want to cooperate with a rude and impolite businessman like him. He held Tin's hands back home, and he believed what he did. It was deserving. The scene shifts to Ko Vin and Anu's business trip at a hotel, where they needed to find a new investor named William due to lost opportunities. But today he was out and it was uncertain when he would return. And until the afternoon, he told that he was eating with other partners. Meanwhile, Tin invited her grandfather over for grilled pork noodles, and they began with an interesting round of golf. Tin expressed that she wanted to help him more with his current work. He also recognized Tin's talent and sincere feeling, so he agreed to let her participate. That night at the hotel, Ko Vin and Anu still hadn't met with William. They avoided seeing them, so they needed to show the strategy. Anu wanted to invite Boss Ko to eat night, but he coldly refused and told her to back her room. Since inside himself, there was only Tin. They were making a video together and talking to each other happily. The next day, while they approached in the art exhibition, Tin intervened to take the phone back to the native speaker. He gave the robber a punch. Her house had 7 pieces of land, which made him run away fearfully. He showed his desire for being taught the martial art, so he let the business card. When he left, she learned that this man was the William that Ko Vin was still looking for. During the battle, Tin's hand was accidentally injured. Ta Dac's assistant called to announce that he had heard a person named William who was currently in Ninghai, and Tin fought to save the rescue and was injured. Hearing the news, Ko Vin immediately left Anu and returned to Ninghai. They met each other on a familiar path and extremely happy to see each other, and then they came back home and ate dinner together. When he saw off Ko Vin to work, after a while, William also found the Tajia dojo to learn the Tao. Mr. Ta got a cheap meal to show off a little bit of his spring bay in front of the native speaker. Tin and the children standing on the side felt bored, not wanting to speak. On the company side, Ko Vin was currently having a headache because he could not raise capital. Every employee was worried since the project was in danger of being stopped. Next the group went to meet the main partner, William, to raise the funding from the successful company. The presentation went smoothly and coincidentally. Tin brought in documents for Ko-Vin at that moment. William immediately recognized the heroine who had helped him. Everyone was surprised to see that Tin was acquainted with the director of Grow Mark 1T. With Tin's contribution, the company's credibility and sincerity were greatly enhanced. William agreed to sign a partnership for funding their group. Everyone congratulated the company on successfully signing the contract. Coming out, William also invited Tin to participate in the Avengers filming project to promote martial arts. She happily agreed. Mr. New was very bitter because he was inferior, but he couldn't do anything more. The next day, William's film crew went to Tu's house to carry out the stages for the film. New also appeared there with bad intention. It was to cut off her hand so that the blood would stick to her prop sword. While she was performing, she saw blood on the blade and she was fainted afterwards. Ko-Vin rushed out to help but tripped on a wire, causing a light bulb to fall. He stood up to support Tin. He was also injured, but it was not serious enough. After a day for treatment, he was able to be discharged from the hospital. After the writer Han Ni left, Anu came to visit Ko-Vin in the hospital. Knew that Anu was the one responsible for the incident, but he didn't blame her at all. Anu, feeling remorseful, asked Ko-Vin for a transfer abroad to stabilize her emotions. After completing the film, William and the film crew said goodbye to her to return the country. That night, instead of Tin's drawings, Ko-Vin was surprised due to her painting talent. Tin wanted to apply for the design department with her strength, and Ko-Vin strongly supports that. The next morning, Ko-Vin said that the design department had come up with the theme of unlimited self-creation. Ko-Vin wanted to cheat to help his girlfriend win, but she wanted to apply for it on her own way. Tin went to the room, forgot to eat, forgot to sleep, forgot to comb her hair and ears to draw new designs. Ko-Vin has to go up here and drag her down to the house to eat and rest. Until night, she had already finished and sent it to the design department. Ko-Vin knew that her girlfriend was tired, so she kindly applied oil to her hands to help her relieve fatigue. In terms of design department, there was a handsome boss named Du Shuyan, who was attracted by Tin's drawing. When the assistant for the two girls was her boss's bodyguard and girlfriend, he straightened out each of Xing's exams. But he hated people who had been supported by others. Tin felt excitedly to open the notification from design department, but she was disappointed that she was rejected. Ko-Vin sensed something was wrong and asked her assistant Dac to investigate why Tin's submission was rejected. Knowing that his girlfriend was sad, he took her to the mall to lift her spirits. Dac and Imit secretly followed to support their boss. They then went to Tom Hung Dat restaurant for lunch. Here had a lottery draw, and Dac skillfully teamed up with his boss to help Tin win first prize. It made her feel lucky in this games of chance. Next, the two assistants disguised as bears invited Tin to play the egg smashing game. Feeling that she was happy, and she tried this game, and finally, she had kicked the longest golden egg. And then she won the full combo trip to the center. After the game, she had bought a lot of toys for her, and she felt more happier. They continued strolling to a game machine and started scratching off lucky game. Then they continuously revealed special editions without any mistakes, which made Tin suspicious. She knew that all the luckiness was the plan. But she felt happy since he did everything for her without hesitation. That night Ko-Vin had gone to the bar to meet the manager. Knew that he had ignored Tin's design, so he set the condition that if he found Tin's drawing, if it was bad, Ko-Vin would cover all the drinks, but if he couldn't find a flaw would recognize Tin's ability and took her to the design department. After reviewing, Du Shuyan recognized Tin's entire drawing, but still agreed to let her intern in the design department. But Mr. Vin also needed to pay for this drink. Coming back home, she found a job offer, but she didn't feel happy since he had intervened. She didn't want that since she just wanted to receive an offer due to her ability. But Ko-Vin explained and helped Tin gain another opportunity to prove herself in the design department. The first day coming to the company, she ran into Du Shuyan, who was riding a bike to buy coffee. She asked for compensation from him for spilling coffee on her shirt. He chuckled, claiming he had created a work of art with coffee on her shirt. Then Tin had poured coffee on his shirt to be like her. Then she finally ended up late on the first day at work and wore a shirt covered in coffee stains. Tin realized that the person she spilled coffee on was Du Shuyan, the director of the design department. Ko-Vin stopped by to change Tin's coffee-stained shirt, scolding Du Shuyan before taking her to the office for a fresh outfit. They took the chance to flirt each other to single guys. Since she was the new employee, so he did not her take over any project. Tin claimed her design experience and wanted a chance. But Du Shuyan dismissed her outright. While Tin was looking at painting, Du Shuyan walked in and ran into her, which made him injured. Tin was afraid of blood, so she couldn't see it. After a while, they found the door locking and they couldn't leave. They were locked inside and left phones outside, and it was a tough decision for them. At this time in their small house, Ko Vin and Mr. Tu were preparing meals and waiting for her to enjoy. After a while of rolling around watching a kid's cooking TikTok, the two managed to whip up a few dishes, but they weren't sure if they were any good. Ko Vin phoned his girlfriend but she didn't reply. Everyone was anxious, so Ko Vin went to search for them. Meanwhile, Du Shuyan found some interesting drawings in the storage room. He wanted everything in the painting to move but couldn't figure out how. Tin creatively used a spray pipe and shot color on the wall. Du Shuyan found it interesting so he also participated. After a while, they covered the wall with paint. Du Shuyan slipped and fell but felt satisfied with their completed artwork. Find no ways to go out, it was lucky when a safeguard could find them and take Du Shuyan to the hospital. In the recovery room, Du Shuyan mentioned that he and Han Nin had known each other for a long time from their school days abroad. While Tin helped Du Shuyan drink water, Ko Vin came in and felt jealous. He took her away. Then Han Nin also came and took care of Du Shuyan. Coming back home, Ko Vin was upset when his girlfriend didn't answer his phone call. Tin explained, and they both happily enjoyed a meal to celebrate their 1-month anniversary. They had affectionately flirted and shared it with onlookers and her parents, which made them shy too. The next morning, they expressed to their parents that they wanted to live independently to make the work more convenient. They understood and offered to drive her directly so didn't worry much about the transportation. In the design department everyone was preparing the 10-year project of Du Shuyan. Knowing Tin's talent, he let her take over this project. All employees were envious since she was the new one and lacked experience. But no one couldn't disagree. Du Shuyan also believed a lot in her talent in this project. Tin excitedly shared her achievements with Ko Vin, making her feel happy as well. That day Ko Vin took Tin's parents to visit luxurious penthouse. His teacher was enthusiastic and wealthy, making her parents happy, thinking they might let the kids stay and study martial arts there. After about 5 seconds, he asked for permission to let Tin live independently with him. Mr. Tu, hearing this, reacted dramatically, saying, "What did you just say? I didn't catch that, repeat it." Luckily for him, Ms. Ko could intervene just in time, otherwise, he would have ended up with more injuries. So he had to meet Han Nin for advice. Han Nin suggested that with someone like Mr. Tu, a gentle approach would work best, showing sincerity to gain approval. Ko Vin picked up her in the evening and gave her a lucky box, which inspired her to come up with a new design idea. The next day she presented an idea for the 10th anniversary celebration. It was the lucky gift box. It made every citizen feel curious and want to have experience. This idea was supported a lot. That evening at home, Ko Vin prepared a feast to celebrate Tin's project being approved. It was to impress their future-in-law to take Tin move out and live with him, but it couldn't succeed at all. Mrs. Tu suggested convincing Mr. Tu to give Ko Vin a chance to prove her sincerity. She believed that he was good guy and could be trusted with her daughter. Hearing that, Mr. Tu seemed to agree with his wife. After a while, Tin moved everything to her boyfriend's location. They were happy with their new life because they would always have each other. That night, just as he was heading to bed, Tin stumbled in and asked Ko Vin to work late, making him sweat all the stink. It was the first time he had close contact with women like this. The Du Shuyan company announced that designer Zhao Trung agreed to cooperate so that everyone needed to focus. Tried every best to complete this project. Du Shuyan also suggested that the poster did not have to be in 2D but can be more creative. Mr. Tin, who was Mr. Tong's girlfriend and was also interested by director Du. Everyone felt envious. Next, Tin and the design team began decorating the area for the company's anniversary celebration. Currently Tin's current design hasn't been printed yet, so they had to use old 2D version. But it had some current troubles. Tin's new design was not printed yet, so they were using the old 2D version to set up the stage. Everyone could not find the reason, but Ko Vin had come up with some new ideas to solve. In the strategy meeting, Du Shuyan said all yesterday's designs were kept secret and moved to his office. Someone must have broken and stolen it. When they opened camera, the person who sneaked into the director was Tin. This put all the suspicion on Tin. She couldn't escape responsibility but denied causing the incident. Ko Vin and director Du stood up for her and shared the responsibility with her and called for another investigation. And the plan would still be organized. That night, hearing his grandfather was sick, Ko Vin came to visit him. He also gave him some useful advice to deal with current problems of the corporation. The next day Ko Vin called Tin and Du Shuyan to the office to find the solution for design leak, and found the person who had leaked this design. Du Shuyan suspected that Truong Din could be the stealer and sold it to competitors for personal property. Tin also mentioned that Truong Din had asked her to retrieve documents from Du Shuyan's office. This was to create evidence of the crime, and Ko Vin quickly realized who the culprit was. Right after that, Du Shuyan called Truong Din in for a discussion. She seemed to be startled, so when she mentioned it, the revelation of the project has been brought up, saying that the tree itself is not afraid of dying. She would automatically leave the company unregretfully since she did not care about it. Seeing Truong Din leave, everyone was surprised. Tin wanted to inquire about the situation, but was scolded for her relationship to escalate. Hearing from that, Tin couldn't explain anymore. On this side, Ko Vin made a video call with the designer Lam Jiao Chung to explain and ask him to help with the plan. Backups such as revealing the design make him very angry and always hang up the engine so that he should not sail much. To help Tin relieve pressure, Du Shuyan invited her to the bar to be more relieved. Confiding everything, Ko Vin was at home calling her girlfriend, but she didn't reply, which made him worried. When Tin came home, the guy was jealous. "Where did you go and just came back?" Tin also presented all the details and also felt very happy when his lover was so jealous. Mr. Vin was surprised to hear that Truong Din was laid off due to the pressure from the company. Just as they were getting cozy, Amy called to say her boyfriend had gone out of town. They rushed quickly to Amy and helped her find her boyfriend. Upon arriving, they suspected when Dac asked the receptionist for something. They provided information, but the rules wouldn't allow it, so the three had to leave disappointed. "As I stepped out, I saw Dac helping a girl into a car, so Tin rushed out and knocked him down painfully. As they reached the door, Tin saw Dac helping a girl into a car and swiftly knocked him down. Knowing the reason, she immediately hugged him. Everyone was surprised when Dac had tried to earn money for getting married with Amy. Hoping they wouldn't struggle financially after marriage, Tin and Ko Vin agreed to be the wedding party for their friends. The next day in the council meeting, everyone wanted to postpone the anniversary plans due to the design leak, but Ko Vin insisted on moving forward with the project. Everyone respected his decision, but he would take all responsibilities for the consequences afterwards. Then, Lam Jiao Chung had filed a lawsuit against the Ko Corporation, which required the urgent solution since the anniversary was just days away. Du Shuyan would take over this one to impersonate Jiao Chung since they had to go out court anyway, so they decided to just go for it. Then, the design staff submitted replacement drawings, but none met Du Shuyan's requirements. He required everyone to focus on completing since it had just a week left to complete it. Meanwhile, Tin and Ko Vin were brainstorming ideas for the replacement design but couldn't think of anything. Ko Vin noticed the clay statue he gave to Tich and suggested using its image for inspiration. The next, Ko Vin asked for the idea of the design. After a while for consideration, he finally chose the Tin's idea. He also warned the staff not to leak any information since the anniversary was just 3 days left. When Ko Vin got home, she found Tich struggling with ideas to finish the drawing. So Ko Vin helped her tweak a few details. After some time, they finally finished shaping the 3D clay model of the design. It was revealed that Du Shuyan was solely responsible for the meeting leak and the design exposure. He sent all that information to an account named Director Hong. Fast forward to the company's anniversary celebration. Reporters bombarded Ko Vin with tough questions about the design leak, but she remained composed. The presence of designer Lam Jiao Chung cleared up all the reporters' suspicions. He supported Ko Vin's stance and joined the company in cutting the ribbon to celebrate its 10th anniversary. The ceremony was a great success, attracting a lot of support from attendees. The most frustrated was Du Shuyan, who tried to leave, but Ko Vin intercepted him in the parking garage. Ko Vin had uncovered the inconsistencies in Du Shuyan's statements from the start, leading to her suspicions. Especially with the transaction evidence linking Du Shuyan and Mr. Hong. It turned out that this had all been a trap set by Ko Vin to catch Du Shuyan, who had teamed up with designer Jiao Trung to carry out the plan. Tin also approached to thank Du Shuyan for once valuing her. She advised him to turn back, but little did she know about all the wrongdoings he had committed. This was because Du Shuyan owed a significant debt to Director Hong from the rival company. So all along, he had been following his plans to destroy the company. In Ko Vin's office, he had prepared the lawsuit and a statement to help Du Shuyan. Du Shuyan agreed to sign as a witness as a reversal of the mistakes made. On this side, the design room, everyone was happy with the return of the program leader. All eyes have been completely resolved. That night, Ko Vin and Tin panicked and returned to try because his grandfather was getting worse. He only wished for them to marry and have kids so he could enjoy being a grandparent. Just by looking at Tin, you could tell his grandfather's acting was pretty impressive. Then he flipped his instance and hoped that they would marry soon. Tin immediately declined, feeling shy as she awkwardly walked away. They then brought a lot of snacks and treats to Tich's house to visit her parents. Her parents, while having dinner, urged the couple to hurry up and get married. The grandparents even shaped cheese sticks into a heart to show their support for the couple to marry right away. During dinner, Ko Vin asked her future father-in-law how to tame the fierce lion. He, with plenty of experience, replied that it's better to listen to your wife for a long and happy life. At home, Ko Vin lifted weights and sprayed on perfume to attract Tin. After both fell off their bikes, Tin unexpectedly crawled off to bed first. He was fed up with life and finally until the morning he just could express his feelings to Dac. He couldn't understand why his girlfriend still wouldn't agree to marry him. It was totally unreasonable to think that if he wasn't married, his buddy and his girlfriend shouldn't expect a wedding party. Dac finally came up with a plan. That day, Emi invited Tin to the studio to try on wedding dresses. Emi encouraged Tin to try on the latest dress so she'd feel more comfortable if she ever got married. After trying on the wedding dress, Tin was amazed by the romantic, dreamy setup of a proposal scene. Ko Vin appeared in a dapper groom suit, gazing at Tin. Their memory came back from the first sight and they were happy together. In her mind, Ko Vin held a bouquet and an engagement ring in her hands. He sincerely knelt down to propose to Tin in a romantic setting. With enthusiastic support from everyone around, Tin said yes. As she put the engagement ring on, everyone there felt moved by the scene. Ko Vin quickly announced that they would hold the wedding the following week. They shared a kiss that left everyone around them spellbound. The next day, Ko Vin and her assistant brainstormed designs for the wedding. They aimed to make the wedding grand and absolutely stunning. At Tin's house, her parents are also busy preparing for the wedding ceremony in a modern style. Tin still doesn't believe that she will get married tomorrow, so her face is a little lost. Her mother advised her to go and apply a little mask to beautify her skin to prepare to be a bride. My grandparents were also happy to shed tears because their daughter's wedding ceremony was about to take place. On this side, the grandfather's family is also busy writing calligraphy to see what his grandson's name is. He also advised Ko Vin to pay attention to maintaining his health, to prepare for the upcoming wedding ceremony to be chosen. Suddenly, the day had come for Ko Vin to come to Sujia to pick up the bride. Before leaving, my grandparents told my son-in-law a lot of things. On the car to the hall, Tin was very worried because it was the first time to be a bride. Ko Vin was by her side to encourage the spirit of her beloved wife, but she was on the road. Then the tire exploded, making it impossible for them to go to the hotel. So Ko Vin decided to return to the martial arts hall, to Jia to hold the wedding ceremony because it was a very meaningful place for the two of them. Ko Vin passed Tin on a motorbike heading towards Jia. Everyone in Sujia at this time was busy preparing for the wedding ceremony. When the bride and groom arrived, it was also the time when relatives joined the loincloth to congratulate them. No need for a luxurious hall, just have relatives and neighbors around. Witnessing it is really the most fulfilling and happy. Next, the marriage ceremony of the three worships took place. The bride and groom in traditional costumes completed the worship ceremonies, and then began pouring tea to invite the supporting music. They received lucky money and heartfelt blessings from family members on both sides. Ko Vin personally served tea to her senior, surprising him. After the first act of worshipping heaven and earth, it is the bride and groom who move the flower room. We can't have perfect love and the illustrious career when we are still stuck on our own path. So when you love someone, you should love yourself. If you don't love yourself yet, who will love you? Try to improve yourself. One day unknowingly, fate will also come. Waiting has never been scary. Happiness will come to each of us if we are kind enough.